Welcome back to another episode of Black Facts. Today we're going to be talking about heart health with Dr. Kimberly Long. She's a highly accomplished senior healthcare executive and consultant, and she also holds a doctorate in health administration and is a family nurse practitioner. Welcome, Kimberly. So happy to have you on Black Facts to talk about this very, very important subject matter, heart health in Black women.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump right into it. So talk to me about, why does heart disease disproportionately affect Black women?
It affects Black women primarily because if you think back to when we came over here or when we were brought here, the people that survived primarily were salt retainers. And so because with the retention of salt is a retention of fluid, and so there was a resistance to dehydration. And so by the time we set foot on American soil, we were already predisposed to heart diseases, hypertension, things like that, because of that salt retention that was genetically in those that were able to survive that experience. And so because of that, with the hypertension and so forth, those pressures automatically begin to cause dysfunction with the heart muscle, with the vessels and things like that. So it really goes back to a genetic thing that has us at a higher risk for heart disease.
Wow. So heart disease, you just said, because we have salt retention and it's genetic, it puts us at a greater risk of also then disproportionately being exposed to COVID-19, right?
Yes. And the exposure and the significance of the impact. Because COVID-19 has a tendency to cause heart damage. And the reason why, if you go back to one of the primary areas that it impacts is the lungs. And the heart, of course, pumps into the lungs to get the blood oxygenated and so forth. So if the pressure in the lungs is great, then it's going to backflow and cause higher pressures in the heart. So if you look at it and you think about, we already have compromised heart muscle and vessels. And now a person gets COVID and the pressure in their lungs is greater. So you've got a compromised cardiovascular system. Now you have a compromised pulmonary system. That is going to cause damage to both the cardio and the pulmonary systems. And so what it does is it causes the impact of COVID to be much more significant in the cardiac and pulmonary systems for people that look like us than it would for people who do not, and may not have those predisposing conditions.
Okay. I want to go back a little bit. You were talking about salt retention. Can you talk a little bit about that? Can you dive a little bit deeper into, what does that mean, we retain salt?
Well, what it means is, some people can eat salt and they'll excrete it fairly easily. And so what that does is it provides a better regulation of the sodium level. But if you're a salt retainer, you're not going to excrete it quite so easily. You're going to retain it for a reason. And there's a reason why, there's a genetic reason why these individuals required more salt. So it's almost like sometimes when you're in one place, something is beneficial.
Right.
When you're in another place, it's detrimental. And I'll give you a quick example of that. People who have sickle cell disease, it came as a result of a genetic migration that caused the blood vessel to sickle under certain circumstances. Well, in those circumstances, it resulted in a resistance to certain diseases. When you take them out of that circumstance and put them somewhere else, now it's not a good thing. So in this particular case, the salt retention where we were was beneficial. But the salt retention where we were transported to is now detrimental.
And with that, our diets. Can you talk a little bit about how our diets contribute to,
Usually if you go into the kitchen of an African-American grandmother, you're going to see a lot of spices. And that's why the food is so good at the potluck. At the same time, a lot of those spices have salt bases. So we not only now retain salt, but then we also add more salt. As a result of that, you're going to have the corresponding fluid retention. And as a result of that, you're going to have the damage that high sodium levels does. The other thing is, because those potlucks are so delicious, sometimes we tend to carry a little bit more weight.
Girth.
Yes. And that extra weight also puts a strain on our heart. And with that heart disease, there's a higher risk for attaining COVID-19 and for the significance of the result or the impact it's going to have on us physically.
Well, some of us just think that, we're just, we're big boned people. We're, a little extra weight never hurt anybody. But actually you're saying, yeah, that coupled with our diets is having a negative impact on our ability to, or actually is putting us at greater risk at getting heart disease.
Now, I will tell you this, though. A lot of the BMI, the body mass index scales, are based on Framingham studies or studies of people that don't look like us.
Right.
So, for example, if I looked at the BMI scale, at my height, it would have me weighing about 100. It said 119 to 145. Now, I'll be totally frank with you. I weighed 119 pounds when I was 9.5 years old. So the likelihood of me weighing 119 pounds today is pretty slim. So, we can't necessarily go by those types of scales because they don't take into consideration, of course, the bone density, how your genetic build and so forth. So it's a matter of finding that healthy spot for you. The other thing is, customarily, there are cultural beliefs sometimes that the thicker a person is, the more attractive, the more voluptuous, the more financially stable they are. Mm-hmm. And so that feeds into it as well. So the bottom line is, we don't want to try to get so small and little that we fit those BMIs, because that's not how we're built. But at the same time, it's a matter of being comfortable enough with yourself to say, you know what, I want to be healthy. And if we exercise regularly and we have a healthy diet, and that doesn't mean we can't go to the potluck.
Right.
It just means we don't want to be at the potluck every Sunday. That sort of thing.
If we do go every Sunday, we need to eat in moderation.
That's right. Exactly. So find a process that incorporates a healthy diet and exercise. And then, to be honest with you, your body will contour itself if that's done, and it'll find that sweet spot for you.
Okay, so now we've talked about our diet and how that contributes to heart disease. We've talked about physically, that we need to make sure that we're, physically, we're getting physical activity and we're physically fit, right? So that we're not exposed to, or not exposing ourselves to being at risk for heart disease. Let's talk about our emotional health. How does stress contribute to our risk of heart disease?
When you're under stress, there are chemicals that are excreted, primarily adrenaline and cortisol. And those are fight or flight chemicals. Mm-hmm. So if we find ourselves, or if we're under stress on a regular basis, and to be honest with you, I have to say this, how stress impacts us is not an external process. It's an internal process. We choose how we deal with stress.
Yes.
That's our choice. We have a choice of just letting it totally control us to the point where we're having migraines and stomach cramps and irritable bowel syndrome and, you name it. Or we can focus on what we can control and control that, and what we can't, we don't worry about, or we turn over to the divine, if that's where your mind and your spirit is. So we can control our level of stress, because stress comes from how you respond. It doesn't come from the external factor. But going back to the impact that it has, if you are in a fight or flight mode all the time, then your blood vessels are going to constrict. Your heart may beat a little faster.
Mhm.
It's going to be more, the pressure is going to be higher. With the blood vessel constriction, you can have headaches. Your muscles are going to get tight and get knots in them, which is going to cause compression on other organs and body systems. And so what it does is it puts you in a position where your body is fighting itself. And I'll tell you something that I noticed, and that is you can be in a stressful situation and choose to think about it X way.
Mhm.
And with that, you get these responses. And at the same time, you can say, you know what? I don't think I want to think about it that way. I think I want to think about it this way. And those responses will totally change. I mean, in a moment, this can happen.
It's true.
So when we place ourselves under stress, it's actually it's bathing our body in detrimental chemicals.
Mm.
And then
Ooh.
we have to fight against those chemicals for our bodies to do what they naturally do. And the correction of that is not medicine, symptoms management. The correction of that is an adjustment in one's mindset. And that brings that stress down. It allows for the positive, beneficial chemicals to start to excrete. You
Mhm.
know, you get your dopamines and your serotonins, you're replacing your cortisols and your epinephrines. And that makes a big difference as far as how your body functions and how you feel.
Wow. So you've basically said that it's our approach, it's our mindset. We can control all of our risk factors, right?
Mhm.
Right? We can
We
control
can,
the emotional
most of
stress.
them.
Well, somewhat, right. We can
Yes.
control the emotional stress that we
Mm-hmm.
allow to, affect us. We
Mm-hmm.
can eat better,
Mm-hmm.
right? And reduce our risk of, heart disease from our sodium intake. And we can also be physically active. So we're not worried about too much girth. But
Yes. And you know
we
what? Somebody
have the
said to me one
attention.
time, your genetics is the gun, your lifestyle is the trigger.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. So tell me this, why are women more, it seems like, and I may be wrong, but why are women more at risk for heart disease than men?
You know what? I think it's, there's a study that says that women live longer when they're single and men live longer when they're married. Um, and so what I would what I would say is by nature, women are caregivers. We
Yes.
want to make sure everybody else's world is okay. And many times we will neglect ourselves in favor of our family members because we love them.
Absolutely.
And because of that, we place extra stressors on ourselves. So what it really comes down to is that we have stressors that we place on ourselves,
Yeah.
and we have external stressors that we're dealing with all the time. And that, of course, feeds into that scenario that I outlined earlier. Women do live longer, though, which suggests that we have the ability to manage stress
Yes.
better. But it
Right.
doesn't mean that the stress is not having an impact on us.
Right.
And so I think, what I share with my sisters is exhale.
Whew. Yes, like we did
Exhale.
yesterday. Yoga.
Yeah. It's okay to have a day where you don't do anything.
Mhm.
It's okay to binge watch. Can I take a moment and tell you a story?
Sure.
Okay. Um, I was diagnosed 4 years ago with a genetic disorder of my heart.
Okay.
And it has to do with a genetic defect in the DNA of the heart. Now, I didn't know I had this. It's called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
Okay.
It's something that was passed to me from my father. I found out later I passed it to my son. My daughter doesn't have it, my son does.
Okay.
Because of this, there's two types of cardiomyopathies. There's one that makes your heart flabby, one that makes your heart thick. Mine is the one that makes your heart thick. As a result of that, my doctor shared with me that I needed to have open heart surgery. So August
Wow.
17th of 2017, I had open heart surgery because my heart muscle had gotten so thick that it was blocking the flow and it was causing all of my valves to leak and everything was misaligned. And if I
Wow.
didn't have heart surgery, I wasn't going to be here. Now, a lot of people say, oh, I almost died. Well, literally, I did. So they had to go in and they replaced my aortic valve. They repaired my mitral valve because it
Mhm.
was the tendon or the fibers that hold the valve together were shredded. They had to shave down the septum in the heart. And as a result of shaving it down, I lost my ventricular function. So they put a pacemaker in.
Wow.
And so I have this rebuilt heart. Um, After that happened, I decided I needed to look at life a little differently because my life previously had been very, very stressful.
Mm.
And I decided I wanted to look at life differently because the divine gave me more time and it wasn't going to be like it had been. So I made a lot of changes in my life. I got rid of toxic people.
Mm.
I changed how I looked at the world. I changed how I ate. I changed how I moved around. I changed my mindset and how I decided to view the world. And what I found was I was a lot happier. And I slept good at night. I still do, and cloudy days are not cloudy for me anymore.
Right.
But it was a decision. It was a decision to make every day count. The
Mm.
people who I love know that I love them every day. I go and I spend time with my grandkids, quality time and with friends. And I take a deep breath at the beach and don't complain about the sand anymore. It was a mindset change. And what I found was that my level of optimism is greater, that I feel better and my life has more meaning. But what came from it was a life altering event that caused me to change my mindset.
Yes.
We can change our mindset without life altering events. It's just a decision.
And that's what I'm hoping with this platform is that people will change their mindset and not have to, like you said, go through a crisis or have some type of life
Mhm.
altering incident that happens to say, oh, okay, now I'm going to get serious about, taking care of myself.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for, being so transparent and willing to share that. That has touched me and made me think about some things as far as reducing or not changing my mindset on how I address some of the stressors
Mhm.
that are in my life.
And it
So
doesn't mean you have to kick people out of your life. Sometimes it's how we deal with them. We
yeah,
just can relate to them
yeah,
differently.
absolutely. So what are the symptoms, or are there symptoms that are different that express themselves differently in women than they do in men?
What women have when it comes to heart disease, there are some uniquenesses that we have that differ from men. Because you know how they talk about the standard type um, symptoms of, pain in the jaw on the left
Right.
side. That was my right side, but on the left side, and it radiating down your arm and
Mhm.
so forth. But women manifest differently sometimes. We could manifest with nausea, just nausea. And I'm not saying that I don't want everybody who's nauseated to think they're having a heart
Right.
attack, but just know to consider that. Flu-like symptoms,
Mm, okay.
where you're just kind of tired and you're just not feeling well. You can be lightheaded. You can have cold sweats. There was a lady that I took care of when I was a bedside nurse in the cardiovascular unit. She came in with back pain.
Hmm.
And there was just something different about it. And so I tried to tell the doctor, you know what, I think she's having a heart attack. And he's like, no, she's having back pain, but they just happened to put her in that unit because there wasn't another bed in the hospital. And so she and I
Right.
talked, and I finally talked him into letting me try some nitroglycerin with him. Gave her the nitroglycerin. Her back pain went away. They took her in for a heart cath. She ended up with a triple bypass.
Wow.
And the manifestation was back pain. So we're innervated differently. And I think when it comes to people who look like us, because of sometimes trust issues or because
Mm,
we used to
yes.
just, barreling on through, we'll overlook that stuff and not get it checked out. And what ends up happening is we end up in the hospital when our body can't compensate anymore, or when there's so much damage that it's not reversible. So part of the contributing factor to why the health disparities are what it is because sometimes we don't go in to get checked out early
At the
enough.
first sign of that something's wrong. We'll
Hmm.
wait until we can barely move and
Yeah.
then go in. So
And
yeah,
we'll
just
wait until
doing
they have to
it.
roll us in instead of us
True.
walking in. The other thing too is, we tend to, and my mom was one of them, we tend to do these home remedy things.
Mm. What? No, speak on it.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because to be quite frank with you, most of them work. But we just have to balance.
Right.
It's just a matter of balancing and being aware, know your body and know when it feels good, know when it doesn't, and
Yes.
do something about it.
Yes. Absolutely. I need you to say that again. Know your body. We know our bodies, right? We do. We know, like you said, we know when we feel well, when we're at our optimum, kind of
Mhm.
functioning high energy. And we know when there's like, okay, something's not quite right here. But
Yes.
instead of pushing that aside, that feeling, that thought aside, and
Hmm.
barely say, no, 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 I got to push through. Say that again. We need to
That's right.
stop and love
Give
ourselves
it to
enough
you.
to say, no, something's not right here,
That's
and
right.
go and seek the help that we need.
It's better to go. And the other thing too is self-advocacy,
Mm.
because reality is what it is. Sometimes when we go to the doctor, the physicians will dismiss what we say.
Yes.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
just fact. It's nothing to get all twisted about. It's nothing to be angry and rebellious about. It is what it is. So we have to know how to advocate and say, no, this is what I'm feeling.
Right.
This is what I need you to do, and partner with them
Yes.
so that
Yes.
they know, yes, I know my body and I know when it's right and when it's not right. And I've gotten to the point I send my doctor an email. This is what I'm feeling. Here's
I
a
do
photo
too.
of it. This is what's going on. I need some of X, Y, and Z.
But like you said, you said something key. It's a partnership, right?
That's right.
It's a partnership. You need to be open and honest and work with your healthcare provider, tell them
Mm-hmm.
what's going on, and then
Mm-hmm.
they need to help you try to figure out what and then what the best treatment options are, if in fact it needs treatment.
That's
So
right.
like you said, developing a relationship and a partnership with your provider. So once again,
Yeah.
there are going to be times where you're going to go in and they're not going to trust what you say. But if you know yourself and you know this, I'm something is off, you
Mm-hmm.
need to advocate for yourself and ensure that you get the treatment and the care that you need and that you
That's right.
deserve.
And you don't want to do it in an adversarial way. At the
Right.
same time, you know what? I would encourage people to research. It's okay to look on the internet and see what it says you're
Right.
feeling, but also recognize that when you look on the internet, everything is you're gonna die. Everything,
And sometimes you don't
so
want to go down that rabbit hole, and so
yes, take
the
it
worst
as
thing for
information, but not the source of all truth.
right.
What's more accurate to me is, your body. If it feels off, go get it checked out.
Yes. Yes, I like that. So, I want to ask you, what three things or words of wisdom, advice that you could give us to help us protect ourselves from, our risk of heart disease or getting heart disease in the future?
You know what? The first thing I would say is be proactive.
Mm.
In other words, don't wait until you have your first heart attack to do something with your lifestyle or stroke. My mom grew up in the South, and she used to say that people would say, "You mean you haven't had your stroke yet?" Like everybody was
Ooh,
supposed to have one.
wow.
And if they hadn't had their stroke, then they were lucky they hadn't had their stroke. Be proactive and work on the lifestyle and work on the healthy eating. And when I say that, I'm not saying go out and all of a sudden try to run a marathon,
Right.
because that's not going to be sustainable. Don't suddenly decide that you want to eat, rabbit food. You're going to go totally vegan and fresh and raw. Don't do that. Find something that works for you that you can do, and this is a process, not
Yes.
an event. Meaning
Yes.
that
Yes.
you take this step and then you get used to that and take that step, get used to that. Before I started doing Pilates, I would just take a walk in my neighborhood every morning. And I worked up the distance, I worked up the time, and then I added something else and replaced this and that to the point where I got to where I could do Pilates, but it's taken 3 years. So, this is a process.
Right.
Don't be hard on yourself. Just get up, walk around. During COVID, the first 6 months, I wasn't going outside because I'm high risk.
Mm-hmm.
So I would walk back and forth. I had a track in my house,
Yeah.
where I would just go through and walk through all the rooms and everything. Any movement, our bodies are meant to move. They're built
Yes.
to move.
Yes.
And you know that if you sit on the couch and watch TV all day, because when you get ready to get up, there's some moaning and some groaning going on. So they're meant to move. Move them.
Yes.
Try to find healthy ways to prepare your favorite food. Put that salt shaker down. There are other herbs and lemon and lime and things like that you can replace it. If you're going to go on the internet and study something, find that. Yeah. Find healthy ways to prepare your food. We talked about stress control. Mm-hmm. Work on the mindset. And it takes a while when you find yourself getting, what, is this how I want to feel? This was a question that I asked myself. Do I want to feel this way? No, I don't. Okay, what do I need to do in order that I don't feel this way? Is that situation that's upsetting me? Is there an alternative way that I can interpret that? Mm-hmm. If it is, how about we interpret it in a way that's going to make us feel better?
Yes.
Because it's the same facts. What's causing our stress is how we're interpreting it. So work on the mindset. And then the last thing I'll say is keep your body flushed out and get plenty of rest. So we tend not to drink enough water.
Yes.
Drink that water. Our bodies are 70% water. Drink that. There you go. Drink that water, flush it through, and then make sure you get enough rest. So plan your day so you can go to bed at a certain time, wake up at a certain time, and routine is very important. Mm-hmm. Then your body kind of knows when it's gonna, what the rest period is.
Right.
And it'll start to wind down. When it's time to settle down, it'll start to ramp up when it's time to ramp up. And make sure that we don't overcommit. In other words, sometimes we want to help everybody to the point where we're doing so much that we don't have time for ourselves. We are important, and we need to be important to ourselves. I'm not saying be selfish. I'm saying take care of yourself first.
Wow. Thank you. You just spoke directly to me. I hope that our viewers, something that you said resonated with them, because there were several things that you said that resonated with me. Specifically with, don't overcommit, don't try to be all things to everyone, and change my mindset when I'm dealing with stress. I have a very kind of stressful, position, life, and there's a lot of external things that are outside of my control. And so I need to learn how to deal with that and change my mindset and my approach to, or my outlook on how I approach those things, so I can minimize my risk.
It's okay to say no.
Yeah. Yes.
It's okay.
That's true. Yeah. Hard, but
okay.
Got to start somewhere, right?
That's right. And you know what? Sometimes you start by in the mirror when you brush your teeth. Just practice.
I'm going to try that. Thank you so much, Kimberly. I so appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us about, like I said, this important subject matter, heart health amongst Black women. And I know that someone out there in our viewer audience is gonna, be touched by some of the things that you said, and hopefully, start with those small incremental steps to, turn things around. If you've already been, diagnosed with hypertension or, obesity, it doesn't mean that you can't change things and turn things around. It's just take that one step. I'm going to start walking, like you said, or I'm going to, change how I prepare, my meals. Just commit to doing one thing and doing it so that you can sustain it. And I know that, we're going to be able to make a difference. So I just want to ask all of my lovely ladies out there, please, let's love ourselves enough to take better care of ourselves. That means eating better. That means getting physical exercise and activity. And that also means taking care of our emotional well-being. We need to make sure that we put, as they always say, put your oxygen mask on first before you can help the next person. So let's love on ourselves. Let's take care of ourselves so that we can reduce and eliminate our risk of heart disease.
That's right.
So I just want to thank you again. I really appreciate you joining us on Black Facts to talk about this important topic.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Okay, so I want to thank all of you for tuning in to another episode of Black Facts. If you have any questions or comments about this subject matter, please, please, please leave us a comment and we'll be sure to respond to you. If you have suggestions on show topics that relates to different health issues, please email me at blackfacts, it's PHACTS, at blackfacts@gmail.com, and follow us at Black Facts on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and subscribe to our new YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on upcoming episodes. Join me for the next time as we have an engaging conversation so we can know the facts. Take care, everyone. See you next time.